Racist attack on black man over parking spot. 10 minutes later, his incredible Navy SEAL story unfolds. Jamal stepped out of his car, the summer heat wrapping around him like a thick blanket. He had only been back in his bustling urban neighborhood for a few minutes, but it felt different, charged with a tension he couldn't quite identify. The corner store stood just as he remembered it. Bright signs, laughter spilling out from the door, families gathering with bags full of groceries. But as he walked toward it, a sense of nostalgia washed over him, mixed with a premature sting of disappointment. His heart raced as he noticed a man eyeing him with blatant hostility. "Park somewhere else, you don't belong here," the man yelled across the sidewalk, a sneer twisting his features. Jamal's chest tightened. It was the type of ugly confrontation he had fought against overseas, only now it was here, front and center, in the very heart of his own community. Jamal had served his country, fought for justice, for freedom. Yet the weight of this man's words felt like an urgent slap to the face. Memories of camaraderie, of truth in the heat of battle, flickered in his mind, but they could not prepare him for the raw hate standing just a few feet away. Just when he thought about walking away, proving he was above this, the voice of his values surged within him: honor, integrity, resilience. He squared his shoulders, ready to face the storm. "Do you even hear yourself? This is our neighborhood, not yours." The man spat, and the crowd around them paused, drawn into the unfolding drama. Eyes widened, whispers ensued, each individual processing the encounter through their own lens. Before we continue, Jamal heard someone faintly speak from the sidelines. "I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen." Now let's continue. A whirlwind of emotions gripped Jamal, and for a brief moment the man's words faded. He took a deep breath, feeling the heartbeat of solidarity pulse from the onlookers. Perhaps this was an opportunity to fight not with fists, but with dignity. "You think you can define who belongs here? You're wrong," he replied, each word heavy but measured. He glanced around at the faces watching, seeing them reflect his own struggle, his own pain. A glimmer of hope sparked within him, the chance to inspire. Suddenly, from the crowd, Michelle emerged, her face a blend of shock and concern. Their paths had fractured over the years. Misunderstandings had woven a distance that had hurt them both. But here she was, stepping forward to bridge that gap amidst chaos, feeling just as uncertain yet determined. "Jamal!" she shouted, the fabric of their strained relationship crackling with tension. For an instant the anger of the man faded, replaced by a thicker, more complicated atmosphere: family, love, resentment, all swirling together as the police approached, sirens wailing in the distance. The world around them held its collective breath. Would Jamal's quiet strength resonate in a moment that could redefine them both? Or would they be swept back into the tides of their painful past? Jamal searched his sister's eyes, understanding that through love and forgiveness, true transformation could emerge, even against this tide of prejudice. But as uncertainty hung heavy in the air, so did the question. Would they take this chance to heal or let the rift deepen further? Jamal stood frozen, caught between the hostility of the stranger and the unexpected presence of his sister. Michelle's eyes, wide and pleading, pierced through the chaos. Every fiber of his being screamed at him to walk away, to ignore the man who had dared to challenge his right to be home. But the weight of Michelle's gaze anchored him. "Get back, sis," he called out, his voice steady but low. He could see the worry etched in her features, a reminder of the bond they once had. Memories surfaced, family gatherings where they laughed and played, moments erased by time and misunderstandings. There was a history between them, one that urged him to choose love over anger. "Jamal!" she pleaded again, inching closer, her familiar presence comforting yet maddening. "Just walk away. You don't need to prove anything to him." But Jamal felt the stirrings of something powerful within him, an urgency to stand his ground, to make a statement not just for himself, but for every person who had felt the weight of exclusion. He took a step forward, feeling the eyes of the crowd leaning in, waiting, searching. "You don't decide who belongs here," he stated firmly, his eyes locking onto the hostile man's. The anger in the stranger's eyes flickered, uncertainty battling with hatred. A murmur spread through the crowd, encouraging whispers rising like a wave. The atmosphere brimmed with an electric tension, as strangers exchanged glances filled with empathy. Jamal felt a surge of support, a unity born from shared experiences and the universal yearning for justice. The man shifted uncomfortably. Jamal could see cracks forming in his bravado. Perhaps he was realizing that the fight he had picked was not only with Jamal, but with the very foundation of decency. "Is this what you want?" Jamal continued, his voice resonating. "To create a divide in our own neighborhood? This place should be an open door, not a wall of hate." Michelle stepped closer, her voice shaking. "Jamal, please, think about what could happen." But before he could respond, the approaching police car pulled up, blue lights reflecting off the pavement, stirring anxiety in the air around them. People began to separate slightly, a palpable shift in the crowd's focus. Jamal sensed the opportunity slipping away. This was the moment to steer the conversation. He didn't want the police to arrive and turn this into a different type of confrontation. His heart raced. What if they didn't see the whole story? What if it spiraled out of control? "Look," he called out, addressed the attention back to the man. "Do you really want this? To fight about parking spots, to show the world how divided we can be? I fought for your right to say what you did, to stand here. But I hope you realize we can build something better together. Let us be part of a community instead of tearing it apart." The man hesitated, the fight in him waning. The police stepped out of their vehicle, assessing the situation, yet Jamal maintained eye contact, searching for any tacit recognition of understanding from his adversary. A deep breath. Jamal's heart pounded, aware that this moment was pivotal, the culmination of not just a confrontation, but years of pain and distance. Michelle reached out to him, her hand brushing against his. It felt solid, like a lifeline amidst chaos. Maybe this was their moment to reconnect, to fight against more than just hate, but against the chasm that had formed between them. But now, in this charged silence filled with possibilities, could Jamal spark a change not just for himself, but even for the man who had hurled insults? Would understanding emerge from this rift? Or would division claim victory once more? The tension lingered in the air, thick and heavy, teetering on the edge of transformation and heartache, waiting for the next words to break the spell. Jamal held his breath, the weight of the moment intensifying as his mind raced. The crowd's murmurs faded, leaving only the sound of his heartbeat in his ears. He glanced at Michelle, her face a mix of concern and something else, maybe hope. Perhaps they could bridge this gap, not just for themselves but for anyone watching, anyone who'd ever felt pushed aside. The tension twisted in the air, almost tangible. The man, still locked in their staring contest, showed signs of retreat. Was he considering Jamal's words? Was he ready to listen? Jamal took another cautious step forward, risking escalating the situation but knowing he had to act before things spiraled out of control. "Look, I get it. We all have our fears. This world feels too big sometimes. But does standing apart make it smaller, or just harder for all of us?" His words hung there, an invitation to empathy. The stranger blinked slowly, confusion replacing some of that fury. For a heartbeat, it felt like they were reaching across the divide. But then the moment shattered. "You don't know me." The man's voice cracked, a mix of pain and anger spilling out like a dam breaking. The tension in the crowd thickened again as they instinctively leaned back, drawing away from the emotional turbulence. Jamal felt his stomach knot. The man's anguish, even if misdirected, resonated. Their lives had walked different paths, each battling unseen monsters. "You're right. I don't know you," Jamal replied gently, his heart aching with understanding. "But I do know what it feels like to be pushed away, to be questioned about my place in a world that should welcome me. None of us should face that alone." Before the man could respond, one of the police officers cautiously approached them. "Everything okay here?" she asked, her gaze scanning the crowd, settling on the tension in Jamal and the stranger's stance. Jamal seized the moment, unwilling to let the police shift the dynamics of the situation. "We're just talking. I'm trying to reach out." He pointed to the man. "He deserves to be heard too. We all do." The officer nodded. "All right, I'll give you that." She directed her attention to the man, her voice softer. Can you tell me what happened? The stranger shifted, the fight draining from his stance. I don't like them parking here. It's my neighborhood too. His voice trembled, but there was a crack in the hostility. A momentary opening. Jamal jumped in. It's not about parking spaces. It's about community, about feeling safe enough to belong. Imagine being seen for more than just a car. More than just a threat. They held each other's gaze. An unspoken agreement forming in that silence. Jamal could feel something shift. Understanding was inching closer, but he would need to nurture it carefully. Just then the squad car's engine hummed in the background. A heavy reminder of how this could change in an instant. Another officer signaled from afar, urging caution. How would they interpret the scene? Jamal felt his chest tighten, all too aware that consequences loomed. Please, Jamal pushed forward. Let's talk. We can change this together. Show them what it means to be a part of something together. As the man considered his words, Jamal turned to Michelle, who looked on with wide eyes, a mix of fear and hope washing over her face. Could this be the moment they not only save themselves from hate but also find a way to heal what was broken between them? The stranger took a deep breath, looking at the police, then back to Jamal. It was a moment of vulnerability, a crossroads. Would they step towards unity or retreat back to anger? The tension pulsed in the air, the crowd collectively holding its breath, waiting for the next step to signal their fate. But what would happen when someone stepped in, someone who was more than just an observer, someone who could change everything? Jamal felt the weight of the moment pressing down, anticipation sparking electricity in the air. The stranger's eyes darted between the police and Jamal, his breath quickening as if he were about to make a choice that might alter everything. Jamal's heart raced in rhythm with the crowd's growing anxiety. This was more than an argument over a parking spot. It was about humanity, understanding, and the buried fears that festered in their lives. Look, the stranger said, steadying his voice. I've lived here long enough to see things change, scary things. This neighborhood, it used to feel safe. Now it feels like I have to defend what little I have left. There was pain in his words, a deep well of emotion that Jamal could almost touch. Change doesn't always mean you have to lose what you love, Jamal replied, his voice firm yet gentle. Sometimes it can open doors to something bigger. Don't you want to feel at home in your own neighborhood? The stranger looked into Jamal's eyes, a flash of uncertainty surfacing. The crowd shifted, as if sensing the vulnerability hanging in the balance. Michelle stepped closer, her voice breaking the tension. We're all trying to find our place here. Just like you, I've felt pushed out, like I don't belong. But we can stand together and make our voices heard. Her words were hopeful and raw, drawing nods of agreement from those nearby. The officer, sensing the shift, took a half step forward. We're not here to escalate things. We want to protect everyone, she said. But we can't do it divided. For a moment, the barrier between them began to dissolve. The power of connection was undeniable. The human experience rang true. Fear, love, community, and safety were universal desires that bound them all, regardless of their differences. Maybe I could give this a chance, the stranger murmured. The change in his tone was subtle but profound, as if a long-held grudge was beginning to crack. But what if it doesn't work? What if I open up and it's just another disappointment? Then we'll face that together, Jamal replied without missing a beat. We need to believe that change is possible. In every step forward we'll find a reason to keep going. Around them the crowd slowly began to realize the shift that was happening. Conversations sparked, and laughter emerged from shared memories of childhood and community in the neighborhood. Just as the atmosphere felt like it might resolve into something resilient, a loud shout pierced the moment. Hey, what's going on here? A figure barged through the throng, a man with a fierce expression, clearly agitated. His presence commanded immediate attention, changing the dynamic instantly. The stranger recoiled, the familiar anger resurfacing like a dark wave. Jamal's heart sank. Would this be the tipping point back to conflict? Who's this guy? The newcomer spat, his gaze darting around. There was a danger in his tone, a hint of potential violence that caused the crowd to tense again. Jamal felt his chest rising and falling rapidly, heart pounding like a drum. They were on the brink of a breakthrough. Yet here was a fresh threat that could dismantle everything. Just when we thought we'd found a way forward, Jamal whispered to himself, He glanced at Michelle and the crowd, searching for an anchor amidst the chaos. Could they really overcome this? Could unity still prevail against such opposition? What was the next step in this tangled web of emotions and misunderstandings? With everything hanging in the balance, Jamal took a deep breath, ready to step into the fray again. But would there be enough strength in their newfound connection to withstand the challenge approaching them? Jamal steadied himself, the air crackling with tension. The newcomer, a tall figure with clenched fists, stood before them like a storm on the horizon. The crowd's collective breath caught, morphed into an electric silence. Jamal felt Michelle's hand brush his arm, a silent gesture of solidarity, as if she knew he would need it. "What's your problem?" Jamal stepped forward, raising his voice just enough to be heard over the sudden hush. "We're trying to talk, not fight." The man scoffed, his features twisted with aggression. "I see a bunch of people who don't belong here trying to take over. This is my neighborhood." "Your neighborhood?" Michelle echoed incredulously. "This isn't about ownership. It's about creating a community where we all feel safe." The man's glare shifted from Jamal to Michelle, and for a fleeting second, Jamal caught an inkling of fear flicker in his eyes. "You think it's that easy? Keep pretending everything is fine. You don't know what it's like." "None of us do," Jamal replied. He felt his heart quicken, urgency spilling into his words. "But we can learn. Together we can find a way to discuss the real problems and not tear each other apart over things that don't matter." The stranger blinked, confusion mingling with his anger. Jamal could feel the crowd's eyes locked onto this confrontation, each person an unyielding witness. They were all counting on this moment, and even if they didn't know it yet, unity was the only hope to slay the rising tension. "What if I don't want to?" the man pressed, desperation slipping into his tone. "Then maybe you need to ask yourself why," Jamal responded. "What has changed in you? What fears drive you to this anger? You're not just angry at us. You're angry at the world." A murmur rippled through the crowd, the shared experience of fear intertwining among them. Jamal could see the glimmer of reflection in some faces, a recognition of their own vulnerabilities. "Let us talk." Michelle's voice cut again, gentle yet commanding. She gestured to the group nearby. "Let us sit down. Let us find common ground, not division." But the man seemed torn, pulled back and forth between his ingrained resentments and the fragile connection forming with the community. He took a deep breath, hands relaxing only slightly. "And if I say no, what then?" "We'll still be here," Jamal said, his voice low and steady. "You can't push out what's already a part of you. We're not going anywhere." For a moment the distance between them felt palpable, like a canyon waiting for a bridge. Jamal's gaze didn't waver. He sensed the crowd around him leaning in, hope melding into a palpable warmth. Just as the stranger's expression began to soften, the moment shattered. A loud crash echoed down the street, and a figure stumbled forward, clutching his side. "Help!" he gasped, blood seeping through his fingers. Jamal's heart sank. "No!" Panic surged and the crowd erupted. Shouts filled the air as the realization dawned: a new crisis, one that could erase everything they'd just built. In an instant, the fragile unity they had fostered hung by a thread. With adrenaline pumping, Jamal darted toward the fallen man, desperate to provide aid while keeping the gathering chaos from swallowing them whole. Could they thread through this turmoil? Or was this the moment they lost everything? Jamal turned back toward the crowd, searching for answers among the frightened faces, steeling himself for what lay ahead. Jamal reached the fallen man, whose face was pale as he pressed his trembling hand against a deep gash in his side. "Stay with me," he urged, kneeling beside him. The shock in the man's eyes mirrored the horror spreading through the crowd around them. "What happened?" Jamal's voice broke, blending concern with fear. "Just a fight," the man gasped, struggling for breath. "Some guy got mad about a parking spot. Tried to stab me." His words faltered as his grip on life loosened. Jamal's heart raced. He could hear the crowd buzzing behind him, voices melding into a chaotic chorus. Some were shouting for help, others were phoning for an ambulance, but Jamal felt trapped in the moment. He needed to focus. "Hang in there. Just breathe," Michelle said, kneeling next to him. "You're going to be okay. Help is on the way." But the man's eyes darted around. I can't die here." His breath hitched, panic seeping into every word. You're not going to die, Jamal insisted, even though doubt knotted in his stomach. Look at me. Keep your eyes on me. He could feel Michelle's presence beside him, a comforting anchor in the storm. The tension in the crowd began to fracture, people making room, others stepping forward with hesitation, needing a sense of purpose. Jamal felt the energy shift, a jolt sparking through as their fear transformed into resolve. Someone get a shirt. A jacket. Michelle shouted, her voice cutting through the chaos. She ripped a strip from her own garment, twisting it into a makeshift bandage. Just hold on, okay? You're fighting for your life right now. Please don't leave me, the man murmured, his voice laced with a childlike fear that shamed Jamal. Memories of his own recent struggles filled his mind, loss, displacement, the feeling of being disconnected from a community. In a flash he understood this wasn't just about the man bleeding out on the ground. It was about everyone here, the weight of their shared fears piling up. Stay here with us, Jamal urged, his voice steady now. You're not alone. We're all in this together. His words hung in the air, resonating with the crowd like a mantra. One by one, faces began to soften, strangers becoming allies in this collective moment of crisis. Someone stepped forward with a blanket. Another provided a phone, frantically dialing emergency services. The crowd was no longer simply spectators. They were a lifeline. The bleeding man's gaze met Jamal's, searching for something, hope perhaps. Why? He asked, bewilderment etched on his face. Because we matter. All of us, Jamal said, forcing a smile that felt as fragile as his composure. Even when it's tough, even when we fight. He took a breath, glancing at the others around them. We're stronger when we come together. As the sirens wailed in the distance, signaling help was on the way, Jamal felt a rush of warmth flowing through the crowd, something tangible and real, igniting the embers of connection they'd almost lost. But just as relief began to wash over them, the crowd shifted again, eyes widening in fear. A group of men approached, faces tense, bodies rigid. What happened here? One shouted. Jamal's heart pounded anew. The old tension surged back like a tide, threatening to obliterate the fragile hope they had just built. This could escalate, spiral out of control. Could unity withstand another storm? Or would this moment fracture everything they had fought for? As the crowd braced for what was to come, Jamal glanced at Michelle, fear colliding with fierce determination. Whatever happened next, they had to stand together. The group of men advanced, a wall of hostility that loomed over the scene. They moved with an intensity that felt almost predatory. Jamal's pulse quickened, panic crawling up his spine. The earlier unity felt as fragile as glass. One wrong word could shatter everything. What did you say? One of the men demanded, his voice low and aggressive. He squinted at the bleeding man, lying helplessly on the ground. Who did this? Jamal stood, instinctively placing himself in front of the injured man. He needs help. We're waiting for an ambulance. His words came out firmer than he felt inside. Right, and you expect us to believe it was just a fight? The lead man asked, his voice dripping with skepticism. The crowd murmured. Uncertainty hung thick in the air, tension crackling like static. Michelle joined Jamal, eyes fierce. It doesn't matter how it started. What matters is that he's hurt. We're trying to help him. One of the men scoffed, glancing back at his companions, their expressions flickering with impatience. Jamal's heart raced. This wasn't just a fight, it was about race, about belonging, about the hurt that so often shadowed their streets. Look, he said, trying to find a way to defuse the situation. That man is in serious trouble. If you care about what happened, help us get him stabilized. The lead man stepped closer, his face inches from Jamal's. You think standing in front of him is going to change anything? You're just putting yourself at risk. Jamal clenched his fists but held firm. I would rather take a risk than turn my back on someone who needs help, just like I want someone to do for me. He could feel Michelle's steadying presence beside him, energy radiating warmth and courage. The men hesitated, looking from Jamal to the crowd and back again. There was a flicker in the lead man's eyes, a divide between anger and a decision yet unmade. You think you're some kind of hero, huh? He laughed, but it was brittle, almost uncertain. No hero, Jamal replied, feeling the steady hum of voices around him, the support, the urgency. Just a man who believes we're better together than apart. The lead man stopped, digesting Jamal's words. The moment expanded, dwindling seconds stretching into eternity. Around them, people strained forward, exchanging nervous glances, waiting on the knife edge of conflict. Finally, the lead man stepped back just an inch. "You better pray for him then." He barked a command to his companions, and they took a reluctant step back, begrudgingly reassessing the situation. It was a small victory, but Jamal grasped it tightly, warmth blooming in his chest. The murmur from the crowd shifted again, this time infusing the air with cautious hope. Jamal felt Michelle's hand on his shoulder, squeezing lightly, a silent gesture that whispered gratitude and connection. As the distant sound of sirens grew louder, a paramedic team began to weave through the crowd, and Jamal glanced back at the injured man. His eyes fluttered like wings caught in a storm. "Keep holding on," Jamal shouted, not just to him but to everyone surrounding them. "This is our moment to show that we are more than our differences." The tension still lingered in the air, but something had changed. The crowd didn't just watch. They leaned in, preparing to stand together, united in purpose, ready to help. Then, without warning, a tall figure burst through the throng, an angry voice rising above the rest. "What's going on here? Why's everyone gathered?" Jamal turned, knowing instinctively that the storm wasn't over. What could this new arrival bring? Would they add fuel to the fire? Or could they stand alongside them as a part of the solution? As the crowd buzzed with confusion, Jamal dreaded what might come next. Would their fragile hope withstand this new challenge? Or would chaos reign? Jamal's heart sank as he turned to face the newcomer. The man was tall, broad-shouldered, with a scowl etched deep into his face. He pushed past the crowd, eyes sharp, taking in the scene like a hawk assessing its prey. Jamal sensed the tension thickening in the air again as he looked back at Michelle, who was scanning the crowd for any potential trouble. "What is happening here?" The man repeated, louder this time. He pointed at the bleeding man on the ground, veins pulsating with uncertainty. "Is this some kind of fight?" "No. He was hurt, and we're trying to help him," Jamal interjected, his voice rising with urgency. "We called for an ambulance." The newcomer's gaze flickered from Jamal to the injured man, then back to the gathering crowd. He was calculating, and Jamal could almost see the gears turning in his mind as he began to process the scene. Would he push the confrontation, or was this a moment where he could choose to make a difference? "Help him?" The man scoffed, taking a step closer to Jamal. "Looks like you all are the ones causing trouble." That accusation cut like a knife. Jamal struggled to keep his composure, feeling Michelle's grip tighten on his arm. "We're not causing trouble. This is about helping someone in need. You can either support us or stand on the sidelines." The crowd remained still, and Jamal sensed that right now, inaction could lead to disaster. His voice steadied. "This isn't just about him. It's about all of us. We need to work together or nothing good will come from this." The man hesitated, his brow furrowing. Yet doubt still clouded his eyes, and Jamal could feel the collective breath of the crowd, waiting for the next move. Suddenly, out of nowhere, another voice chimed in, an older woman from the back. "We're not here to fight," she shouted. "We're here to help. Stop making this worse." Her words broke the tension like glass shattering. A ripple of agreement spread through the crowd. Jamal turned, seeing nods and murmurs of support. It was just what he needed. "See that?" he said, lifting his hands to the gathered people. "We all want the same thing, safety and help for this man. Let us show that we can stand together." The newcomer's boisterous demeanor deflated slightly, revealing a flicker of uncertainty. Jamal seized the moment. "You may not know me, but I'm not a troublemaker. We're just an ordinary group of people wanting to do what's right. Isn't that what matters?" That little spark ignited something in the crowd. They began to push forward, their presence shifting from passive spectators to an active force, each person lending their spirit to the effort. The paramedics arrived, as if pulled by the very unity that started to bind them all. Jamal stepped aside as they rushed to the injured man, but he kept his eyes firmly on the newcomer. "What's your name?" Jamal asked. It was a simple question, but it felt powerful. "Derek," the man answered hesitantly, his tough exterior cracking just a bit. "Derek," Jamal said, "you might be surprised to know that we all just want to help. We can be allies today, not enemies. Can you join us?" Derek looked around, taking in the sea of faces, some determined, others still uncertain. A glimmer of understanding started to pass over his features. "Fine," he said grudgingly, stepping forward. "I'll help." As the paramedics stabilized the injured man and prepared to transport him, Jamal felt a surge of hope wash over him. Perhaps they were on the brink of something transformative. Maybe this moment would change perspectives, ignite connections. But then, a shout pierced the air, cutting through the fragile hope. "Hey, what are you doing here?" The crowd turned, tension boiling again. Another group was approaching, angry and aggressive. Jamal's heart raced. Would they ruin everything they had just built? Would this be the breaking point? As Derek stepped up beside him, a new resolve in their eyes, he wondered how they could stand against this growing tide. Would they stand together? Or would fear fracture their newfound alliance? Jamal felt adrenaline pumping through him. The aggressive group barreled forward, faces contorted with rage. They cut through the crowd like a storm, and Jamal's heart dropped. He exchanged a quick glance with Derek, who stood tense beside him, fists clenched. "What do we do?" Derek muttered, a mix of fear and determination in his eyes. Jamal took a step closer to him, trying to project calm. "We don't back down." His words faltered as the shouting intensified. The intruding group had transformed the air from uncertain to hostile in an instant. "Get out of the way, loser," one of them shouted, glaring at the paramedics who were trying to stabilize the injured man. Another member of the group, taller and broader than Derek, stepped forward. "What's this? A bunch of do-gooders playing hero?" His voice dripped with contempt, and the crowd shifted, the tensions pulsating through them like a live wire. "We're just trying to help," Jamal shouted, his voice steadying despite the chaos. He could practically see the emotions swirling around him: fear, anger, urgency, and he needed to convert them into something constructive, something unifying. "Help." What a joke, the tall man laughed, a sound that sent chills down Jamal's spine. "You think this is your place, don't you? Playing cop in the middle of a real problem?" With Derek beside him, Jamal stood taller. "This is our place. We're in this together. Every single one of us," he said firmly, eyes narrowed. "And you're not going to bully anyone here." Those who had been watching hesitated, glancing from Jamal to Derek, then towards the newcomer group. Was it fear that kept them still? Or did they still cling to the hope Jamal had unveiled only moments ago? Derek stepped forward, trying to muster bravery. "Yeah, we're not letting anyone get hurt because of you. You want to fight? You're gonna have to get through all of us." A flicker of surprise crossed the tall man's face. For a moment, the tension hung in the air, coated with uncertainty. Jamal could see others among the crowd stepping forward, emboldened by Derek's defiance. "Why are you here anyway?" Derek pressed, challenging the aggressors. "Do you want to make things worse? Don't you care about community?" Just then, the paramedics finished wrangling the injured man onto the stretcher. They weren't leaving just yet, and something about their composed urgency steadied Jamal's resolve. He thought about the urgency of kindness. He had jumped in without thinking, desperately wishing to save. Then the angry group saw the vulnerability of their target and began to disperse, but not without one last sneer from their leader. "This isn't over," he called as they started to turn back. Jamal's breath hitched. He now faced the crowd, hoping to seal their new bond. "We proved today that when we stand together we are stronger. Who's with us?" A shout broke through the tension. One person then another, voices rising, chanting in solidarity. Jamal felt warmth swell in his chest when he saw the old woman, a glimmer of hope reflected in her eyes as she raised her hand. Others joined, each nodding, wanting to be part of something good. But just as the atmosphere shifted, a siren echoed closer, and a wave of unease washed over him. Were they ready for the ripple effects of their unity? As the paramedics loaded the injured man up, Jamal realized another truth. Change wasn't easy, and their fight was only just beginning. Yet, as he looked back at Derek, their eyes locked with a shared understanding. They'd taken a step, they had become allies. But would that be enough to hold strong when they were truly tested? The ambulance doors slammed shut, the sirens howling as the tension of the situation clawed at them once more. What would happen next? Jamal stood there, watching the ambulance drive away, its siren fading into the distance, taking with it their immediate crisis. but the shadows of uncertainty still loomed large. Had they truly made a difference, or were they just delaying the inevitable clash that awaited them? The crowd began to disperse, voices buzzing with a mix of relief and trepidation. Jamal felt Michelle's hand grip his shoulder tightly, grounding him. He turned to her, searching her eyes for reassurance. "You did good, Jamal," she said softly, pride lighting her features. "You not only stood up for that guy, but you brought people together." For a brief moment, hope flickered brightly between them, warmth blooming amidst the lingering tension. "Did I?" Jamal sighed, glancing back toward Derek, who was surrounded by a few neighbors who had stepped in during the showdown. "I don't know if it's enough, Jamal," Michelle interrupted, her voice steady. "You did something right. Look at him. He's talking to them instead of shouting. That's progress, even if it feels small." Derek caught sight of them, a mix of gratitude and uncertainty on his face. Jamal's heart raced as he considered this, the possibility of real change igniting, despite the odds stacked against them. "Hey!" he called, taking a hesitant step forward, his pulse quickening. Derek approached, flanked by two neighbors who looked equally curious. "Thanks for what you said back there, man," Derek replied, his voice softer, as if the tension had melted away beneath the warmth of camaraderie. "I never thought I'd say that to someone like you." Jamal's heart swelled at the shift in Derek's tone. "People like us need to unite rather than fight against one another," he said, his voice low yet firm. "We share these streets, our hopes and fears. If we can face them together, we might just find a way to make our neighborhood safer." The men stopped, exchanging glances that conveyed a deeper understanding than mere words. Tension that had once blinded their vision was slowly dissipating. Michelle stepped forward, her voice passionate. "We're all hurting right now, Derek. We've seen our homes change and it's terrifying. But that fear shouldn't push us apart. It should pull us closer." Suddenly the atmosphere crackled again. Not with anger, but with potential. The crowd lingered, sensing the shift. People began to gather again, eager for connection rather than division. Derek nodded, pondering the truth in her words. "Maybe we can work together on something. There are things happening in this community that affect us all." "Yes," Jamal exclaimed, filled with renewed energy. "We could start a community group, talk openly about our experiences, how we're feeling, and build from there." He could see glimmers of agreement spark in those around him, small yet significant. The group around them began to murmur in excited whispers, growing more animated. The ripples of compassion were starting to echo throughout the crowd. They were feeling it too, their shared vulnerability, the need for understanding. "Let us do it," Derek finally agreed, his voice gaining strength. "A real community meeting to lay it all out there, everyone's invited, even those who were yelling. Maybe we can stop the next fight before it happens." Hope expanded in Jamal's chest, a seedling ready to burst through the soil. "Yes, I'll help organize it." Michelle smiled, her eyes shining. "Count me in too. We can work together." As conversations erupted around them, the crowd shifted from uncertainty to resolve, inspiring one another to connect rather than divide. The air was charged with optimism, a collective willingness to understand rather than to judge. Jamal felt tears prick at the corners of his eyes. This was the moment he had been fighting for. Unity was not only possible, it was happening right before their eyes. He looked at Michelle, then back to Derek and the group. "I fought in places where people had each other's backs. This community deserves the same kind of loyalty," he said, his voice steady, buoyed by newfound strength. "Let us prove that love conquers fear." Chants of agreement rose among the gathering crowd, voices intertwining, each person igniting the other's hope. Jamal's heart soared high, filled with possibility. Amidst the urgent calls to action, Jamal suddenly thought of all those who had distanced themselves from his message. And as inspiration surged through him, he knew this moment had to be shared far and wide. "Listen up." Jamal's voice rang across the courtyard, commanding attention. "If you believe in this, if you want to stand together in a united front, then we're not done yet. You need to subscribe now to keep up with our journey. This is the moment to show your support." He saw everyone nodding, eyes glimmering with determination. "Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and feelings about this transformation. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this. Don't wait not even one more second to share. Let us show everyone what true community looks like." And as people's hearts resonated with a collective passion, Jamal realized this was just the beginning. They had faced darkness, but together they would rise toward a brighter tomorrow. One step at a time.